All right, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Ross Blocher. Oh, what? Yes, I'll make that announcement after the talk. So let me bring up Ross. Ross, come on up. Everybody, give Ross a warm hand. All right.
Thank you.
Just hit the arrows right there.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, and I'm wearing the same shirt as in that picture, just in case any of you thought I was an imposter. If I am, I stole his shirt, too. I just found that Atheists United and I have something in common. I've been Ross Blocher since 1982, so same age. And I saw you guys at the AIDS Walk, actually. I walked by all these red shirts and went, all right, and I gave somebody a thumbs up. I'm not sure who it was. Okay, so arrows. So I'm going to talk not only about the podcast and kind of what we do with it. At show of hands again, anybody who's listened to the podcast before? Okay, so we got a few listeners, but mostly people who haven't heard it. Okay, I wish I was talking more about what we do, but I will be. But I'm also going to talk about kind of how I got to the position of being the sort of person who would do such a podcast, if that's nebulous enough. So we launch into it. So here are some of the episodes of our podcast. I am a designer. I like to do a lot of graphic design, and so one fun thing that I do with every new episode and investigation and interview is create a new poster image for it. So this gives you some of an idea of kind of the range of things that we do and that we have fun with it. That's the idea. The show is called No Ross Carrie, and the idea is that people would say, "Oh no," if they knew what we were up to when we show up. Here's another set of investigations. So this is ongoing. We're preparing our 27th investigation right now. I should say 27th episode. We just recorded that a few days ago. Down in the lower left there is our most recent episode where we went to a pro-life pregnancy center that tries to talk you out of aborting your child. So Carrie said she was pregnant. She tested herself. I went as the supportive boyfriend. Yeah, and at first the place seemed, I guess I'll launch into this. At first the place seemed really legitimate, and I was thinking, oh no, these people are just, giving medical counsel, and all the literature and everything looked on the up and up. But they sequestered her in this office all by herself and made me wait in the lobby while they started to talk her down Romans Road and give her like the Billy Graham tracts and everything like that. So the religion got laid on pretty quickly. So we subject ourselves to fringe science, religions, alternative medicine treatments, New Age, all these things. We try them out, and we show up firsthand. Our tagline is, we show up. Here's me getting ear candled, having a candle burnt in my ear to pull the wax out of it. And yeah, it can cause damage, I've heard. So Carrie didn't want to do that. I showed up so she didn't have to. And then, yeah, that's the other half of it. We show up so you don't have to. There's Carrie getting acupuncture. So we put ourselves through it, and then we come back in the show and we recount our experiences, the people we talk to, the questions we ask them, their responses to honest questioning. And usually there's something funny involved in all that. And we do a little bit of research on the side, but for the most part, we're recounting our personal experiences. So, how did I get to this point? Well, I'll give a little bit about my history since Carrie's not here today. You guys have probably all heard this verse, train a child in the way he should go. And here's me with my parents, very young, and you can tell that all of these were taken on a Sunday because my dad and or I are wearing suits. So every Sunday, growing up, every Sunday, I did not miss any. It didn't matter if I was sick or what. I was wearing a suit and going to church. So that was my upbringing. Of course, the other half of that verse, it doesn't look like I'm too happy about it in that first one. Of course, the other half of that verse is, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. There was my Bible all throughout my childhood on the left there, and then there's one I got in high school with my name engraved on it. That's still the one I use the most often. I have many more Bibles. There's no shortage of Bibles in a Christian household. See Elizabeth shaking her head. Yeah. And so that's the idea. You know, you get them started young, and I'm sure many of you have experience with religion. I'm no different. And so I learned a lot of scripture. I memorized a lot of it. I was very good Sunday school attender with my suit every week. At the same time, I was very fascinated with the paranormal, supernatural. At school, they would give us these scholastic book orders where you could kind of choose books that you wanted to get and convince your parents to pay for them. And then you send away and they show up in your class. And you can take them home. So I would sign up for all these books on, cryptozoology, and I was a big fan of the X-Files later on when that came out, and ghost stories, and so I was into that kind of stuff too. And wasn't quite sure how I rationalized that or like integrated that with my Christian belief. I remember at a time being like fully convinced that UFOs were actually like demons, like the aliens were demons, and it all made sense to me. I'm not going to defend it. I believed it then, not now. Shooting forward into college, I was very active. I was involved in multiple student organizations. I was the president for a while of Living in God's Hands Today. Light, clever, right? A little logo I designed, and continuing with my design love there. And so you can see I was organizing a National Day of Prayer, meet at the flagpole kind of thing, and weekly meetings for Light, and putting out ads across the campus. So this is all to let you know I was very serious about this. And here I am with my wife when she was pregnant. I got married in college, and part of it was a religious guilt. I felt I shouldn't be having sex unless I was married, and I felt very guilty about that. And so here I am with no irony, wearing a Jesus is Lord shirt with my wife when she was pregnant with our son. Very patient woman. Thankfully, I'm shooting forward here, but thankfully she came over to the dark side with me when I deconverted. We just celebrated 12 years the other day, so thank you. Thank you very much. So what changed? I was doing so well. I'd been trained up in the way I should go, and I wasn't straying from it. I was leading all these Bible studies. What happened? And, people warned their kids, and people warned parents about letting their kids go to these secular colleges. And I did go to a secular college out of a very Christian high school where I was taught creationism and all that. But there wasn't the hard sell at college that, I'd kind of geared myself for, that I'd have professors kind of making fun of me for being religious or anything like that. I was studying animation, so, there wasn't a big emphasis on those topics even. So really, it was one of my professors who had just included in a section on like bonus credit, extra credit activities. He'd included a list of Skeptic Society lectures. And so I looked at this thing, and I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you at the time what a skeptic is or does or was. But I looked at these lecture topics and went, oh, this is really fascinating stuff. Oh, this is about chromosomes. This is about the edge of the universe. Wow, cool, okay. So I went to Pasadena, and I didn't need the extra credit. I had the highest grade in the class. I was a good student. But I took copious notes. I wrote a report. I sent it back to him. Oh, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I went to the next one and, wrote up a report. And he said, all right, stop writing the reports. I know you're paying attention. But what happened was, and this is kind of integral into what led to this whole podcasting deal, is that I kept going because I disagreed with these people. They would make little jokes before the talk about Christians and what Christians believe and do, and I'd kind of fold my arms, say, well, 1 Corinthians 1 says, God's foolishness is greater than man's wisdom, whatever that means. Psalm 14, 1, God is, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. I had all these little pat responses that I'd been kind of programmed with. But I kept going back because I was really fascinated with these people and these speakers. They'd be scientists. They'd be talking about, some topic, maybe unrelated. But it was expanding my mind. I was reading the books. I was just really interested. So this was like a year and a half. This took me a while. It wasn't one conversation or anything like that. It was really a long process. And during all that time, I was becoming increasingly aware of that voice in my head kind of coming up with these responses and increasingly uncomfortable with them and kind of what they were based in. I felt the logic wasn't there. I thought, well, isn't that what you would say if you were part of a cult? And so the Skeptic Society really was the beginning of this for me. And again, it wasn't a hard sell by anybody. It was just kind of my own personal reflections and my own tenacity and it being fascinated with people I disagree with. So over time, I came to this real personal crisis and realized these people are making more sense than I am. I need to be consistent about what I actually believe. So that was kind of the point of my deconversion, and it was near near my graduation, my final year of college, and I'm also working, and I've got a family already with a son. It was crazy times. But it's not easy. A lot of you have probably gone through the process of losing religion. It's not easy at all. You've defined so many things in your life around that. I include also Point of Inquiry because I started listening to that podcast. Among others, Skepticality. I'm a big podcast listener. I have like 20 I subscribe to. It's a lot of work. And in one Point of Inquiry episode, they mentioned CFI Los Angeles. Los Angeles, that's where I live. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, there's this great place. And so I came here, and before I'd been like trying to get involved with the Skeptic Society, and they kind of already had their business figured out. But at CFI, there were all these extra things I could do and ways to get involved. So I started going to the book club meeting, and I started attending the independent investigations group, which is totally up my alley because I'm into all that paranormal stuff now from the other direction. So I'm currently a steering member of the independent investigations group. I've been with that for like 7 years or so. So anyways, I found a home. So you may ask then, what happened with this whole church thing, this whole belief thing? Well, what I realized was I was doing this kind of shuffling of my priorities in my head. I was kind of going from, I think, how we're programmed to believe within religion, which is God is kind of above everything. And then, you worry about your family and friends and all that stuff. And for me, I realized that I was putting God above truth. Like I was, willing to seek and ask questions up to a certain point, up to the point where they question God. And I think that's the roadblock for a lot of people, is that they say, okay, well, God is above all, so I'm going to interpret everything I learn or see in the world in that light. And so I did, I think, just kind of a mental recalibration where I went, wait a second, what I really care about is truth. And I think there's the great Thomas Jefferson quote, question with boldness even the existence of God, for if there be one, he prefer, the honest questioning rather than blindfolded fear. I'm messing with his words there. But anyway, so once I made that kind of mental shift and said, wait a second, I really need to be able to question this honestly and even question God, then I was able to make that shift. So what didn't change was that I'm still a person who's very interested in those who disagree with me. And I'm interested in truth. That's my priority. So we're all limited. We can only know so much. There's an inbuilt humility there that you can only know so much. And so we always have to accept that there's things we don't know yet. So the idea is that I'm constantly expanding, and I'm willing to, is that my next point? Yes, I'm still willing to change my beliefs if I'm proven to be wrong. So that kind of plays in on the podcast thing. If I'm investigating one of these groups, if I'm going to Mormon services every week, I may go in skeptical, but with an understanding that if it turns out to be right, well, I'll be a Mormon then. I'm willing to, I'm not afraid of that. If that's the truth, then, that's what I'll be. I didn't become a real Mormon, by the way. I mean, I'm still in their rosters and everything. I'm still technically a Mormon, but just in case you're worried. So I'm not here infiltrating. So this was an important thing for me during that transition from belief to non-belief, is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think a lot of people, when they say, okay, I'm done with this church thing, oh crap, evolution makes total sense and all the evidence is there, whatever, they find out that they were wrong, then they want nothing to do with anything like religion. So all the trappings go away, the meetings, the Sunday mornings, and here we are, we're all a testament to the opposite truth, which is, no, you still need community, you still need a family, that's all important. But for me, I didn't want to make this rapid transition. I couldn't just say, all right, everybody, we were friends before, but we disagree on this belief thing. Sorry. This is the Presbyterian church I was going to for years during college before I became a non-believer, and that I still occasionally, I'm not very good at attending all the time, I still go to now. And I actually design their website and update it and update their podcast of their sermons and stuff. So this was important for me. I really had to think about this. And in fact, for a while, I was actually kind of under the radar. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just kept going there and sort of observing them to see, if maybe they could win me back, or if I'd been wrong, to question, because, I still had kind of an open line to God saying, hey, if, you know what I need as proof. If you want to prove it to me, I'll become a believer again. So I was still going to church, but then at one point they asked me if I wanted to be a deacon. And I gave a lame excuse. I lied to the lady who called and said, well, or at least I told, not even a half-truth, like a quarter truth. Oh, I'm out of town a lot of the year, like when I'm visiting family. I don't feel like I'd be involved enough, but thanks. But then I realized immediately, okay, that's not the real reason. I need to talk to the pastor. So I made an appointment with the pastor, showed up, and asked, hey, this is where I'm at mentally. Is it all right if I, stick around? Should I leave? What do you think I should do? He said, no, stick around. That's great. Really open-minded, great guy. And he said, no, that's fine. Just keep doing what you want to do. You can keep ushering. I respect that you didn't want to be a deacon. Thank you. But yeah, more and more, and I think he kind of misunderstood. I think he thought I was asking to be led back into the fold or something like that, and that's not what I was. But he assigned me this youth pastor, and we would have, morning breakfast and play chess together. And I think over time I was having more of an effect on him than he was on me, so they kind of ended that. We're still good friends. He's actually pastor of a different church now. But anyways, there were a number of reasons. People would ask me, why are you still going to church? What's the matter with you? Including my wife, who was saying, hey, can't we be done with this now? She didn't like church to begin with. So can't we, get our Sunday mornings back? And so there were a number of reasons. You may have read some of them already. And this was just off the top of my head as I was putting this together. There were a number of reasons why I wanted to keep that connection. One was, again, to make that point that just because we don't agree on this one thing doesn't mean we can't be friends anymore. I wanted to make that clear to my friends within the church. We may still be totally aligned on political issues or, child rearing or whatever it may be. Also, I had been raised always hearing about those atheists. I hadn't even met an atheist or someone who identified as such up until, college. And so that was such a foreign concept to me. And so you would hear things, not necessarily burning cats or whatever, but still, you'd always think of atheists as being these immoral people. And I thought, if my friends know me and know who I am and know my family, they can't say those things about atheists, because they'll start to, and then they'll be like, well, Ross is all right, but, most atheists. And slowly they'll come around. The first point, I can keep tabs on what's current in the church. It doesn't change much, I'll be honest. They kind of keep treading on the same themes. Also, then it would prevent me from doing the reverse, which is saying, those believers. It helps me kind of keep my head in the game and remember where I was at and have a little humility about that as well. Let's see, what else? What else did it do? And then it underlined my commitment to stay open-minded. I'm not afraid of what anybody has to say. I'm not afraid of people sharing their viewpoints with me because, maybe they're right. And if they're not, well then, we can talk about those reasons. And then also opportunities to serve alongside believers. Churches do a lot of great things, and I would participate in soup kitchens and community house building and stuff. And it's great that you guys do the road cleanups. I want to do that with you guys. That's awesome. That's fantastic. You guys are replacing a lot of those things that hasn't traditionally existed outside of church, and that's fantastic. And then it led to a lot of great conversations and advances, I think, in my believer friends. Like that same guy who had been sort of assigned to me, the training pastor. I remember after one prayer and concern session, he came to me afterwards and he said, that lady, she kept saying, like how God saved her husband, but then she was talking about all the stuff that he had to go through at the hospital. And I thought, really, the doctor should be thanked too, at least. And I was like, right on, exactly, thank you. I appreciate you saying that to me. And then one Sunday after, it was a Darwin Day back in 2007, the pastor let me go up after him. He had this much, trust in me that he let me go up after the church service and give a talk on why Christians should reject not only creationism but intelligent design and embrace evolution. That they shouldn't be afraid of truth. And it got great feedback, a little bit of resistance from some traditional creationists, but we had some great conversations out of it. And I even was able to bring my pastor here once. Oh, there it goes. Is it going to sleep? Space. Okay, we're back. Awesome. Let's see. And I was even able to bring my pastor here once, and we did a talk at CFI about one of the cafe inquiries about how moderate Christians view evolution. Great conversation out of that. So those are all reasons. So again, this kind of leads up to where I was at with the podcast, where I was still willing to exist in that world. So what happened was I met a like-minded person. And, actually, we got our James Randi beards on there. That's not a very good picture. Let's see here. There we are. I met Carrie Poppy. And actually, I met her here at CFI at the book club meetings. So we were both going to those. And, the Feed Your Brain lectures that go on here. And so I found that when I would say something like, hey, who wants to go to the Kabbalah Center and check out what kind of New Age stuff they're peddling? She'd be the only one who'd say, like, yeah, me too, that sounds fun. And so we actually had done that and a number of other kind of field trips already. And at one point we realized, wait a second, like whenever we go to these things, we come back and people want to know all the stories. They don't want to do it, but they want to like hear what we found out. So wait a second, there might be a show idea here. I think, there's all these podcasts out there, and the last thing we need is another podcast, but this is kind of unique, right? That nobody else has done this. So that's where we got the idea for this podcast that has a unique approach. Another bulleted list here. There's a couple things that we do with this show to kind of set ourselves apart, because again, there's a lot of skeptical shows, great shows that I love, Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, Point of Inquiry, For Good Reason. I could rattle off a lot that I listen to, but a lot of them are just kind of reporting on these issues, maybe doing some research, but we thought, if we can attach those personal stories, we can appeal maybe to a broader audience. And we don't actively call ourselves skeptics. I mean, we've used the word, we talk about being atheists on the show, but we don't browbeat people with it because we want to appeal to everybody and just be, individuals looking into particular claims and giving our feedback on it. So we're pretty easygoing. We don't try to convince anybody of anything, especially when we're out investigating. So if I'm going to a church, it's just to become a member or find out how they greet new people and when they hold hands and when they pass around the collection plate and that kind of stuff. I'm in investigation mode. I'm not trying to get into debates with them and be like, oh yeah, well what about the fossil evidence? Nothing like that. Yeah, I can do that, and certainly there's a time for that, and I've gotten in my fair share of internet debates, but the podcast is not the time for that specifically. And then we seek to learn from the source. And I think that kind of humanizes the people that we investigate, that we meet, is that we tend to find that I think for the most part, I'm trying to think if there's any counter examples, but I think for the most part, everybody we run into isn't waking up in the morning, twiddling their fingers and saying, how can I destroy the world and take advantage of innocent people? They have other motivations that are leading them to believe the things they believe and to do the things they do. And so we're trying to learn that in person from the source, kind of get their perspective on it. We also make friends. We're there to be nice, make friends with the people. Again, we're not talking them out of anything. If later on they want to talk about what we actually believe, and we'll often be honest about our beliefs, we're happy to, but we're more interested in what they have to say. And we have fun. It's a comedy show. It's not just straight-laced investigation. This is what happened, point A, point B. We'll tell the funny stories and have a good laugh at ourselves and at others. One of my catchphrases that I've tried to promote is to question the belief, not the believer. You may kind of recognize that as a corollary of the patronizing and annoying, love the sinner, hate the sin, which, I even found myself saying back in, the college days and everything. And so I realized there was kind of a better approach from my perspective, which is to question the belief, not the believer, and to try to separate those things. Again, I think you can reach out to people even more that way if you address them as people, not as a position. And then when we record the show, then we give our honest feedback. Then we have like a rating scale. We rate things on, a pseudoscience rating, like just how outlandish the claim is. We rate it on a pocket drainer value. How much money is this going to take from you? Is it good value? Is it very draining? Yeah. We haven't gotten to Scientology yet. We'll get there. Danger, we rate it on its danger value. Again, these are all like 1 to 10 scales. And we rate it on creepiness. Those are the factors that we rate each one on. Yeah, because a lot of these things are creepy and some are, fairly straightforward. So I'll just briefly cover some of the topics that we've gone over, and then maybe you'll have some questions about them more specifically. So you guys are reading ahead. I can tell. I hear the laughter. All right, so we've been to the Kabbalah Center. I got ear candled. We went to the Sikhs. The Sikhs were awesome. And by the way, sometimes we really endorse the things we go to. None of it was in English, so we had no idea what they were saying at the Sikh Gurdwara. Or I'm sorry, I'm still saying Sikh. The proper pronunciation is Sikh, apparently. That is what they prefer. They recognize Sikh, but if you ask them how they want you to pronounce it, Sikh, right? That they were awesome and great food, too, for very little donation. We joined the Mormons, and in fact, we got baptized into the Mormon faith. Yeah, that's a fun story. That was a two-parter. And let's see, we received acupuncture. Carrie had a much more painful experience than I did. I think she's kind of a wuss. That's what I'm saying. But she got her needles in the back. I got mine in the face and stomach. So it was a different experience. We joined a hypnotherapy institute, like a group that teaches hypnotherapy, and got hypnotized. It was pretty fun. We overdosed on homeopathy, and we went to a homeopathic practitioner who was also really insistent on giving us Ayurvedic medicine. I almost put Ayurveda up there. And actually, he like moonlights at my work. He does like massages and stuff, so I run into him at work every now and then. It's just kind of awkward. But yeah, we took a lot of homeopathy. I think I swallowed like 180 pills, and then we chased them with wine. Didn't kill me. Homeopathy doesn't really do anything. What do you know? Tarot, we went to a number of different tarot readers, reported back on that. Pan-Africans was kind of an interesting one, which we found out about through our local connections here. And they were... they were atheist as well. They were, I don't know actually if that's fair to say, but they were very anti-Bible at least. And we ended up having a really good time with them and found pretty much everything they said to be right on. Creationism, we went down to the Creation Museum in Santee. I'd been there a couple times before. Pet psychics. We went to a pet psychic, and I was psychically linked to my boss's dog. All I did was I just showed the photo and said, "This is Nala. She's a real troublemaker. She even ate one of my boss's DVDs," because it was my boss's dog. And so the lady was talking about our deep psychic connection. It was hilarious. And Carrie has pets, so she got a reading as well. We joined the Raelians. Have you guys heard of the Raelians? Yes. Okay, some haven't. All right, it's a UFO cult. All right, I'll say cult. It's a UFO group, enthusiast group. They also claim to be atheists. They don't believe in a god, but they believe that we were all seeded on this planet by space aliens, and hence the mixture of alien plus Rael for Israel. And the leader of this group calls himself Rael. Now he calls himself the Maitreya. But he believes that the aliens visited him and told him this whole story about how they created life on Earth. And so the Bible, when it was referring to the Elohim, those from the sky, it was referring to the aliens. So we got involved with them. Actually, they're really the only ones that we got negative feedback from afterwards. We got a cease and desist from them. They were not happy. I admit we did kind of make fun of them because it's really hilarious. I had to read like almost 400 pages of their scriptures, and I deserve to. Yes?
Sorry, did they know who you were?
Oh!
What you were doing there, or were you like...
Yeah, the question is, did they know who I was and what I was doing there? That's a good point. We use our real names all the time and our real contact information and all that. So I'm really on the Mormon roster, and I'm really a Raelian, baptized in that as well. They call it a demystified baptism or a cellular transmission. Long story. It's in the podcast. It's very funny. But yeah, they knew who I was. Now, if they knew what I was up to, again, I'm not there, kind of talking about myself so much. I would go to these meetings and I would ask honest questions from my perspective, but I wouldn't be like, yeah, I do this podcast and we look into kind of fringe groups, not necessarily you, I don't say anything like that. So they didn't know I was doing it for a show. And in fact, later on, one of their representatives was talking to Carrie and I and was saying like, well, why didn't you just tell us that you were working on the show? And we said, well, you would have given us different answers. We wouldn't have gotten a real experience, which is evident by the fact that you asked us that question. So anyway, so yeah, Raelians, that was another two-parter, big story. Colon cleansing, that was one where I really took one on the chin for the listeners. I subjected myself to colon hydrotherapy, and that is a euphemism for having...
Wiggle.
Yeah, I got it. It's a wiggling. All right, it's come back. And we're back. Yeah, that's where they stick a tube up your rectum and flood you with water to evacuate you, to clear out toxins and whatnot. Carrie did like a master cleanse diet for that one. Astrology, we went to a couple astrologers, had our fortunes read. Cupping, I don't know if you've even heard of that. It's this kind of, it's an alternative medical treatment where they put these cups on your back, but first they light a candle under them, so there's suction, and they apply them to your back, and creates these giant hickeys, and that's supposed to again remove toxins, reorganize your chi, whatnot. Let's see, again, the pro-life pregnancy clinic, we did that one, told you a bit about that. And I'll give you guys a hint about our next episode coming out next. I took penis enlargement pills for over a month, not to mention like lotions and this like torture contraption that Carrie bought for me on Amazon. Just awful. Let me just tell you, just learn to be content with what you got, None of that shit works. And then Carrie did the breast enhancement stuff also, pills, ointments, these weird little vibrating things and a pump, it'll be fun. So that one's coming out on the 1st. The 1st of every month we release a new investigation, so something new that we've looked into firsthand. And then sometimes we'll have interview episodes. We haven't had any lately, but we'll find somebody who's kind of an expert on the topic and have them give feedback. So with that, thank you. We are on the internet. That's our website, onopodcast.com. Also Facebook.com/onrack for Ono, Ross, and Carrie. Highly recommend that site. You can like us and see a bunch of pictures. We post pictures of all the stuff that we do, so it's really fun to see the visuals and a lot of supplemental material. And then, you can find us in the usual spots. So with that, I will take any questions you might have. Yes, right back there.
We kind of talked a little bit about this before as far as your induction into the Mormon religion.
Yeah.
What are your last experiences? Did that bring closure? What's your last experiences with the Mormon church community?
Yeah, okay. So the question is, what are my most recent last experiences with the Mormon church? So after we get baptized, that's in the second episode, we tell that whole story, we then got confirmed at a following meeting of the church. So, they laid hands on us, said prayers and stuff. So then shortly afterwards, we realized we'd gotten really far into this, and we felt, okay, we better come clean with these guys, these young elders who had been committing so much time to us. It felt, okay, we need to really come clear with them and tell them where we're at, that we don't believe. And, we made an honest attempt. We really did read the Book of Mormon, as they said. We tried to ask the Heavenly Father if this was true. And that, by the way, is their basis of belief. They say, yeah, we realize a lot of this stuff is hard to buy. The way you really find out is to ask the Heavenly Father, and He will let you know if it is true. And so I asked the Heavenly Father, and, He didn't. And if He had spoken, I would have listened. I'm an open-minded guy, so I would be a Mormon now. But I didn't get that response. Anyway, so we wanted to tell them all this, and they were encouraging us to go that extra step, take the baptism, that would help us even more. It didn't. So So, what's that? It got their numbers up. That's right, got their numbers up, indeed. And so they, and I've got so much spiritual insurance. If one of those religions is right, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm all over Pascal's wager. I'm totally covered. So, anyways, to get to your question, so we told them where we were at. It was kind of a tough moment. We told them about the podcast and kind of how that had been really the genesis of this, but that we kept coming back really because we cared about them, which we do. And so their response was amazing, which was to say, we don't care what brought you here. We really care for you, and we think God has a plan for you. And they still accepted us. So I've been back to church there, and it's 3 hours on a Sunday. It's really tough. And my Sundays, by the way, let me just say, are really busy. There's always a lot of options I could be going to. There's a church I'm currently investigating. I'll drop that hint. I would be there this morning if I wasn't here. I've got my regular church. There's a Mormon church. There's great lectures here, so it's always a tough decision on Sunday morning to decide what I'm going to do. But I've still maintained those connections with the Mormon church. My friends from the Mormon church will show up at my birthday parties, or, I've brought them to my work, and I'll go visit theirs. And I play circle ball with them. It's this fun every man for himself dodgeball, where all these young Mormons with lots of energy get their energy out by hitting each other really hard with these dodgeballs. Fun game, really fun, good workout. So I still hang out with them, not too much lately, but we're still friends.
Do you still get home teachers?
Do I still get home teachers? Once, just a month and a half ago, 2 young sisters showed up, which was a new experience at my doorstep. Yeah, they're like elders, but they're girls, because, of course, women can't attain the priesthood. But yeah, they showed up at my doorstep, which was odd because Carrie and I had specifically organized all our meetings at the church rather than at our own homes, and that should have been their first clue. Yeah, so I haven't had too much home visitation, and so no, that doesn't continue. Though I guess I did do a few home study groups with them at other people's houses, but yeah, I haven't done that since the podcast. But yeah, still very accepting people. I still consider them my friends. Yes,
Ross.
Oh,
yeah,
a voice, disembodied voice coming from Sarah. Oh yes. Milt Scott. Yeah, hey.
Do you wear a wire when you investigate these things?
Oh, that's a very good question. Do I wear a wire when I'm investigating these things?
And then use their, the actual dialogue as part of the podcast?
We are very careful about that. I do have my trusty iPhone. I may be getting a different phone soon. We'll see. But I'm recording this talk right now, and I record a lot of the things that we do. Officially, in California, there are very specific rules about what kind of conversations you can record and what you can and cannot use, what is actually like a public performance. So we will use audio from our investigations many times, and you'll hear them in the podcast, especially if it's like a public event. We will. But we do change the names of people, like individuals, if they're not public figures that we're involved with. And we do try to protect their innocence and be legal. Shoot, I was going to stay on top of that. About our use of that resource. Yes?
A little bit about the Kabbalah experience that you had. What it was like, what their pitch was, what their sales pitch was. Okay. In a sense, because that's what it ended up being, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Kabbalah, very expensive, high pocket drainer value on that one. We showed up, and they have some free classes. They do offer you like some instruction without paying for it. And so we were trying to take advantage of that. Now we've got donors, which is great if you want to donate to No Ross Carrie. So we actually have a budget, and we can do kind of more outlandish stuff. But yeah, we were trying to see how much we could get down that rabbit hole without paying a lot for their classes, because it would be like $1,000 for a multi-week seminar. So Kabbalah Center is very watered down, like kind of Jewish mysticism. That's where it comes from. And so they're referring to all these texts within the Zohar. They don't do like Zohar readings or anything, but they'll make these kind of allusions to what's in that text. And at the same time, they're really promoting astrology, even palm reading, what's the term for it? Like The Secret, where you think the world is going to bend to your whim. What's it called? Yeah, like intentionality and that kind of stuff.
Create your reality.
Yeah, that you can promote your, your own intentionality upon the universe. Reciprocity. Law of attraction. Thank you. That's the term I was looking for. Yay, gold star. So a lot of that stuff. And I still get their news. Oh, I have so many newsletters. Every day I get tons of emails from all these things and more. And I'll bring that list back up. And so I'll still get like daily emails from them, sometimes twice daily emails with little bits of advice, sometimes really good advice, sometimes something silly about, reciprocity or law of attraction or whatever it may be. But the sell was to get you to take those classes. That's what they really wanted. And they feed you a combination of good advice and just ridiculous stuff. Let's see, they would kind of rely upon that you only use 10% of your mind kind of thing, which is pseudoscience. They would rely on this whole view of the world that like everything we see, everything that's physical in this real world is an illusion, and that's the 99% that's trying to distract us. The 1%, this wasn't a political Occupy Wall Street thing, the 1% is that which is spiritual, that is what is real, we need to focus on that. The adversary controls the 99%, and they talk constantly about Satan and his role in the world and how he's your adversary that you need to rise above. So it was a lot of that kind of stuff.
Question.
I've been back there since. Yes.
Question. Here, over here.
Over there. Yes. Question.
Are you really an atheist, or is this one of your investigations?
Yeah. That's a good question. I get a lot. That's funny. I don't think there's any like sacred oath you have to say as an atheist, right, to really be one. If so, it is my best and most elaborate concoction yet. It's good. Yes.
I was wondering if you visited any really extreme evangelical Christian groups for people that believe in, Armageddon is coming, and then kill everybody else off after 1,000 years. So the question is, have I been with any really extreme fundamentalist groups who believe in the impending apocalypse? And yes, that was my upbringing. It wasn't quite that bad, but to give you a little slice of me when I was young, like in 6th grade, I gave a talk to my class with like a little like presentation board and everything on different things that could be the mark of the beast, and how they should be concerned about that, barcodes and chips under the skin, stuff like that. They put them in your right hand, just like the Bible says. No, we haven't gone into like evangelical circles yet because Carrie and I both have like a history with that, but we wouldn't rule it out for the future. We've got a long list of stuff to investigate, and certainly end time stuff is ripe right now, so I don't want to spoil anything.
We're going to pass the mic around, so as you see me with the mic, get my attention, I'll pass it to you. We got plenty of time for questions, so we got one question right there, and then I'll pass the mic around.
All right, so who's got the mic?
Hi, right here.
Yes.
Hi.
Hey.
So this is not a criticism at all, and it's something that even I, as an atheist graphic designer born in 1982, I also have to go through this every now and then. And I appreciate your reasons why you still choose to be involved with the church and helping them out and whatnot. And this is something that I have to go through as well. Do you feel weird about it ever, or guilty, or because at the end of the day, you're still helping them out, you're still helping to spread their podcasts or their sermons, and this is bad. Like, how do you deal with that?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. At times, I do think, oh, great, I'm helping contribute to this. And I did pare back my involvement considerably, kind of based on that. And it's a problem we have with the podcast, too, because we're using donor money, and we're telling people who donate to us, thank you so much, you're supporting the show, but that means we're giving your money to these, things that we really don't support on a broader level in the interest of learning about them and sharing that. Yeah, it's something I just have to kind of take on a case-by-case basis and kind of weigh my overall impact. And I think with my involvement with the church, I'm still helping along with those points to kind of raise people's awareness about atheists and who they are. And I think even within that church community, my Presbyterian church, they've learned a new respect for atheists and people who disagree with them. Sometimes I'll have the pastor send me an email saying, hey, what's your perspective on this issue? And then he'll incorporate it into the sermon. So I think it's great. The dialogue is always worth it. But it is a valid concern. It's totally a valid concern. Yes.
Yes. What happened in the matter with the cease and desist order?
Yeah. Okay. The cease and desist. This was fun. So from the Raelians. And we're kind of sad that they went this route, because we did say on the show we'd love to have somebody on, a representative. Oh, I didn't even mention the most fun thing about Raelianism, by the way. Okay, that's their symbol. If you could calculate like the most offensive thing possible. Let's take the symbol of the Jewish people, and then what would get attention? Oh, we'll put a swastika in the middle. And they actually have like swastika days where they're trying to reclaim the swastika. You know what? Sometimes you just let things go. I get it. The swastika used to be a symbol of peace, of infinity, whatever. There's better symbols out there, or other ones. Anyway, so I don't know why I diverted on that, except to say that they've had a lot of controversy. They've been kind of malicious in things that they've done. And we were very sad to see that their response to our podcast, granted, we were making fun of them more than we normally do, any group, because some of the stuff is just, oh my goodness, you got to listen to some of the stuff. But they had... After we talked initially with the guide, that's like the organizational level, the local guide of Los Angeles, we talked with him and said, hey, you know what, free to come on the show, here's what we're all about. They sent us a cease and desist letter from their lawyer, and so we sent them back a letter and said, well, we feel we're fully within our First Amendment rights, and we politely decline. You can be more specific if you want, but we're not going to respond to this. And so then they sent us another one after a while, and it essentially said, lawyer up, we're going to sue you, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, yikes. But we felt we had a good case, so we lawyered up. And Carrie had a really good connection to a friend who drafted a letter for us. Just amazing, response with legal precedent, saying, okay, here's what you'd have to demonstrate. Here's why you won't be able to. Do you really want to go forward with this? Because we'd love to, bring it on, essentially. And so they sent one more response saying, well, hey, could you do this, this, or this? And so we wrote back, again, legal precedent and no, but you're welcome to come on the show if you want. But sorry, we're well within our rights. And they never responded to that second one. And it's been a long time now. So we want to go public with this, but we just want to wait till we can do it, give it the proper, treatment and do it the right way. But anyway, so unfortunately we had to kind of fight fire with fire on that one. And we would have much preferred for them to come on the show and represent themselves personally. What can you do? Who has the microphone? Yes.
Hello.
Hey.
When you were reorganizing your priorities, I noticed that in the second column there was truth, God, and then family.
Oh, yeah.
Could you explain why God is above family?
Well, that was fairly arbitrary in terms of like the subjects chosen. I was trying to get PowerPoint to let me include more on there, but yeah, whatever. So really it was just that important switch. It was taking God from the top spot. That's really the main point of that slide, was just to say that I would be able to question even God. But at first, I still had kind of that old organization that I was raised with that had God at the top. But as soon as I was able to at least question even him or her or whatever, that was a big step. And then they all got shuffled afterwards. They don't look like that anymore. I guess family would be right up at the top. And, family is like a real thing, whereas truth is a Aristotelian concept or whatever. So, it's, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's the best, representation of my personal priority system. But the important point here was not having God at the top, so I was able to evaluate him objectively.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that answers it. Okay. Yes.
I'm so impressed with your story about your Presbyterian minister allowing you to give a pro-evolution talk after church.
Right.
We need to replicate you for our side.
Thank you.
1,000 times over.
Thank you very much.
This is really an incredibly enlightened way of going about proselytizing, even though you're not proselytizing, but you are creating avenues toward doubt and possible regeneration of, a person's belief systems just by your philosophy of staying involved in your prior life. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Just by way of an anecdote, I get those fun moments occasionally where people have those moments of realization. And I remember once I was in the kind of after church, coffee hour, just, having conversations with people. And not everybody knew I was an atheist, like kind of all my group of friends did, and like, the church leadership did. And again, I didn't make a big deal about it at church. I would ask gentle questions, but I didn't come out and be like, that's false. Maybe in personal conversations, but not in that setting. And so anyways, we were having a conversation, and then somebody said well, how do you feel about this as an atheist? And this other guy turned around and said, wait, what? And he was totally flummoxed, and it was really sweet. He turned to me, this was really sweet and honest of him. He said, you were one of the first people I met when I came to this church. You were ushering, and you greeted me, and you were so nice, and I just liked everything about you, and I thought, this is exactly the sort of thing, the sort of group of people that I like. And he said that it had been a big deal for him. And so then, he had this realization, and so now he had to rationalize that, or he had to kind of fit that within his worldview, that this person that he really liked and connected to just didn't even believe in God. So yeah, I think there's some success stories there. Yes.
Oh, yes. I think that it's good that if we all have different styles, and if you can get by in church without being antagonistic, that is a good thing. I'm glad you recognize that the swastika is offensive. I went on October 4th to Skylight Books, and a comedian said, why do we laugh about concentration camp survivors? Why do we laugh? And this is a man who's been in the industry of writing comedy for Cheers and many other, and I was thinking, you know what, there's no Jews on those sets that he's writing for, because Jews don't laugh, Anyway, I just want to say one other thing. You have a different style. Your style is, kind of a positive, and that's refreshing, and to get along with people. I have a problem with, well, I'm also political, but I have a problem with getting slammed politically. Mm-hmm. And so if you can tell us how to get along in groups, if I say I like Chavez, I get slammed from President of Venezuela. I get slammed so much if I'm in a group here, like some conservatives here.
Sure.
It's not worth it for me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's a really good point. My approach is a unique one, and it's kind of based out of my personality. And I think there's room for a variety of approaches. So I'm glad for the Dawkinses and the Hitchenses and, every approach. And at different times in different audiences, I have different approaches. I can do scriptural debates with the best of them, I like to think. And I'm happy to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, for the most part, I have that kind of nicer approach because, yeah, I like everybody. Generally when I meet people, I like them. As for dealing with those kinds of situations, I mean, I run into that, here, within, my friends at the investigations group. Some of them don't believe global warming is a real issue, that kind of come from a libertarian perspective. And we'll go back and forth on that, but we like each other. That's the first thing. And I think the important thing is just not to be threatened, not to not appear to be threatened, but just not to be threatened by people disagreeing with you, because what's that going to do anyway? I mean, who cares? So they disagree with you, big whoop. Either we arrive at truth or we don't, but we can have a conversation. So I don't know. I'm able to talk with friends about politics and disagree with them, and it doesn't bug me. It's a personality thing, I guess.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Hi. Returning once again to the issue of the Presbyterian pastor who invited you to give a talk about evolution again. I'm reminded of, I can't remember the exact title, Daniel Dennett has something called the Ministry Project or something like that, which is about, is for clerics who have, lost their faith. And one of the things that he mentioned is that a lot of what these people learn when they go to seminary is how to conceal their own doubts, and the more they look into scriptures, oftentimes the more doubts they have, and how to conceal this from their congregation, right? To give kind of vague answers and just be kind of encouraging and sympathetic. So my question is, would you say that this pastor is somehow maybe, or was kind of introducing his own skepticism or permitting you to express his own skepticism?
Well, maybe. I mean, I can vouch for him, a particular friend of mine, pastor, that he's very open-minded, and he's also not threatened by people who disagree with him. So, you know, I can't say what he's personally thinking inside his head, but I have to give him credit, you know, for what he says, which is that he's still a believer, but that he's open enough to entertain, you know, someone coming in with a new perspective. I think Daniel Dennett's right. I think others are right that there's a lot of closet atheists out there who kind of go through the motions but secretly don't believe. And then by all means, if I can help, you know, kind of be someone there to kind of demonstrate, hey, I've got no problem with it. I don't believe in God. No big whoop. You know, I go on with life. I don't have this extra added layer of explanation on everything that confuses matters. Maybe that can inspire them to come out of the closet, so to speak. And it is like coming out of the closet. I mean, yeah. So hopefully that answers the question. Yes.
If I can ask a bit of a personal question.
Yes.
You and Carrie have a very interesting relationship, given that you've been to Raelian sex parties. You've taken off your shirt for her more times than I've been able to count. I've listened to every episode. You recently took her to a pregnancy clinic, and most recently you made your penis larger for her. How does your wife feel about all of this?
Oh, that's a great question. I did not make my penis larger for her, I'll tell you that. No, Carrie and I have been good friends all along, and I think early on my wife was wondering why I was spending so much time doing this stuff, but quickly learned that, you know, this was kind of my thing and my form of expression within my skeptical activities and science involvement. So I'm a very honest and open person. Like, I don't really have secrets. That's why I'm willing to talk about, you know, this kind of stuff. And so yeah, that, you know, we're all at an understanding. There's nothing untoward, if that's the question. Carrie and I are good friends.
Hello. Okay. So we have time for two more questions after this, and but I have a question of my own. What do you think was the scummiest or the sort of the was there ever a talk that you actually had to go home and take a shower from? Experience. Which one gave you that experience, if any?
Yeah, so yeah, what was the scummiest experience? Oh my God, let me look at these podcast episodes. What do we got here? Yeah, that's true. You want to take a shower after the colon cleansing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, in terms of physical gross out factor, that takes the cake for sure. The colon cleanse when I did the colon hydrotherapy. But in terms of like mentally just going, oh yeah, this is the welts on my back from the cupping. And there's Carrie getting the cups on her back. I got to see her with her top off. Let's see. You know, I've got a pretty thick skin when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't know. Okay. No, I do have an example. With the Raelians, they didn't say it while we were there at any of their meetings, but they do have a history, and this is part of the reason they got really mad at me at us with the cease and desist, and I should be careful. We mentioned allegations of pedophilia and, you know, like support for like underage sexuality, and there had been this email that was passed around. There's this Rail Science newsletter, which I'm signed up for. I kid you not, like 5 emails a day from them, like just passing along science articles. And occasionally there will be this commentary from Rael himself. And so one time years ago, there was an email that went out, and it was like this German study that was encouraging fathers to touch their daughters, and it was fairly explicit in it, you know, touch their genitals, and it encouraged them to touch them back, and it's all okay. You know, that's ick factor big time. Not cool in my book. And we commented on that in the podcast, again saying, you know, it wasn't our personal experience, but we did have the email that had been forwarded to us before I signed up for the newsletter. And so that would be the ickiest, I think. All right, I'm going to go home and take a shower again. Yes?